Order, order, it's time to put L&D on trial. Each month we take a look at an area of learning and development which has come under heavy criticism for various reasons. Usually it's a lack of research, scientific rigour, things like that. One of us will defend, one of us will prosecute. I'll usually lose. Jo, what is next in the doc?
I like the fact that you usually lose, because today we are covering MBTI and the joy that is the Myers-Briggs type indicator. Shall I tell you a little bit of the history of it, John?
Tell us the history and make your case. Go on.
So the MBTI, it's an introspective report. Wikipedia tells me it's a questionnaire claiming to indicate a psychological preference in how people perceive the world around them and make decisions. It was constructed by Catherine Cook Briggs and her daughter Isabel Briggs Myers, and it's based on the typological theory proposed by Carl Jung, all sounding absolutely great. Carl Jung speculated there were 4 principal psychological functions, and although it's really popular in the business sector, the MBTI exhibits significant psychometric deficiencies, Wikipedia tells me, notably including poor validity, i.e. not measuring actually what it purports to measure, poor reliability, such as giving different results for the same person on different occasions. So we actually both did a free online personality test, didn't we, John?
We did, yes, we did.
So I came out as an ISFJ, and this is what often people kind of say. They go, "Oh, I'm an ISFJ, I'm an NT, blah blah blah." And if you're not really into it, those numbers or letters don't mean a lot. I came out as an introvert mostly. Can you believe that, John?
No.
And why ever not?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is the first alarm bell, anyway.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm your one standard for this. So there are these 4 areas. So, am I more introvert or extrovert? This is telling me I'm introvert. Am I more intuitive or sensing, whatever that means? Am I more thinking or feeling? Am I more perceiving or judging? So I came out as an introvert, sensing, feeling, judging person. So John, I shall now judge what your results were.
Okay, so I came out as introvert, sensing, thinking, judging. Yeah, so extrovert or introvert, intuitive, sensing, thinking, feeling, perceiving, judging. I came out 48% that doesn't work. Hang on. So I came out 52% introverted, 58% sensing. Essentially, we'll publish the results with the podcast, but my chart, basically, I'm pretty much 50-50 down the middle with my results. And I have issues with that because it basically doesn't tell you anything. Sorry, I'm defending Myers-Briggs, aren't I?
That's it. I think we're both, I'm supposed to be prosecuting. But no, you're right. I mean, you're right. You're looking at this from a personal point of view. And I find it kind of really interesting that it's coming out and telling me, on the scale of things, I'm more of an introvert than an extrovert. And, anybody that knows me knows that that's not true. However, what I think is really interesting is we all have differences and fluctuations. So because I'm quite extroverted and I'm quite happy to go in front of a camera, be on a podcast, go chat to people, speak at conferences, all of those things, I still need that quiet time to go and recover from things. So it's interesting that that's the case. And a lot of the questions that it was asking, which, we were chatting on Skype yesterday and you were saying you didn't, I think to paraphrase, you didn't like the questions, and neither did I, because, they're interpretive. They're saying, do you prefer to go to a party or stay at home? It's like, well, I'd prefer to stay at home, but that's because actually I've kind of got a health issue that makes me tired. It's like, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, it would be the party every time. So, these things are really hard to kind of judge. So going back to kind of prosecuting this, all again from Wikipedia. So, I could just stick with Wikipedia. I do have other research to back this up, but Wikipedia tells me that Jung's theory of psychological types wasn't actually based on controlled scientific studies, but instead on clinical observation, introspection, anecdotal evidence. All fine at the time, but today it's inconclusive. Scientific rigor is different. Both models are hypothetical. There's no controlled scientific study supporting either Jung or the Myers-Briggs variation as well. And I really like this point. It's been estimated that between a third and a half of the published material on MBTI has been produced for the special conferences of the Centre for the Application of Psychological Type, which provide the training in the MBTI and is funded by sales of the MBTI, or on papers of the Journal of Psychological Type, which is edited and supported by the Myers-Briggs advocates, and by sales of the indicator. So, obviously it's arguing that there's a lack of scrutiny there, it must be said. I've got more, but it looks like you wanted to jump in there, John.
Yeah, I'm struggling to defend this again. I was going to say, though, that there's one company that has the exclusive license for Myers-Briggs for the whole of Europe,
CPP.
or maybe even EMEA. So that doesn't strike me as something which is based in science. I think this is just another method of money making, essentially. I mean, buy the license and you get to understand your staff a bit better, your workforce a bit better, which isn't really a particularly good thing to portray it like that. I know several people who've taken a test recently for new jobs that they've got, so it is a quite pervasive thing still. MBTI. There are a lot of psychometric tests out there. It's probably one of the best known. Shall I just try and defend it? Because I do have a couple of points.
You can give it a go. Let me just say before you do, I found some other research. CPP is that private company that you said about. They published the Myers-Briggs type indicator. And according to a Washington Post article I read by Lillian Cunningham, it brings in roughly $20 million a year, and it has 800 products such as coaching guides and all sorts of things. No major journal has published research on the MBTI, which academics consider a strong repudiation of the test's authority. So go ahead, try and defend it if you want to. Give it a go, John. You always go so valiantly.
Okay, so this isn't exactly a defense of the efficacy or validity of MBTI. But what I would say is that I think, unfortunately, Myers-Briggs is probably going to become more relevant as discourse gets more polarized. If you look at the way that, say, social media conversation is not necessarily within L&D, I'm talking more generally about how you see arguments play out, for example, on social media and things like that. There is very little room for the huge grey area that should be there. It's very, very black and white. It's very, very black and white, the way that people approach topics, be they political or social or whatever. So I think because MBTI is, even though it gives you a linear scale, it's still based on very much a polarity idea of you're either one thing or the other, and you have a bias towards one or the other. And so I think, unfortunately, it will still carry on being popular. So it's not necessarily a defense, but I don't think Myers-Briggs is going anywhere anytime soon, because I think its popularity will it will kind of get it will increase as the way that online discourse about certain subjects becomes more settled in one camp or the other. Personally, the other thing I'd say, that when I was answering the questions, I actually probably gave different answers to the same question when they flipped them around. So, for example, like you said, do you like to go out? Do you like to go to a party, or would you like to stay in? And you'd answer one way, and then later on in the questionnaire, it would say, do you like to stay in, or do you like to go? And then you'd ask something else, or you'd put somewhat, because maybe you'd change your mind. And so maybe the flaw with Myers-Briggs isn't actually the test itself, but it's the people, or it's the questions. I don't know. I think
it's probably the flaw is the questions and the test and how it was developed and the fact that it's got no scientific rigor or research. But carry on.
Are you sure? The point is that Myers-Briggs might have it may not have scientific rigor behind it, but it's a theory that possibly is backed up. It's a well-structured theory, but it doesn't take into account that human beings are quite fickle, essentially.
I don't know that it is a well-structured theory. So, it was based on Jung's work, but actually it's only based on half of Jung's work. So Jung actually came up with 32 types, and actually MBTI is only based on 16 of those. So immediately you're halving the work it's based on anyway. The people that came up with it, Myers and Briggs, the mother-daughter team, they didn't have any formal psychological training. They didn't have any background in this. They worked it all out for the types first, and then they went and did research and basically did the personality tests and worked it from there. You know, this is not how it should be done. It should be done the other way. You do your research and then you see what the research tells you. You know, there's all sorts of research from people saying, you know, there's no consistent relationship, or sorry, few consistent relationships between type and managerial effectiveness. And that was from management researchers William Gardner and I don't know how to pronounce his name, Martin Coe. Personality psychologists Robert McRae and Paul Costa sum it up and say that the MBTI doesn't give comprehensive information on the 4 domains it does sample. Personality psychologist Brian Little observes that insight from Myers-Briggs can start a conversation, but unfortunately often ends the conversation because you've got your type stamped on your head. So, you know, John, you are introverted, therefore that's how you will always be, that's how it works, so therefore actually we're never going to send you to a conference, we're never going to let you on a podcast, we're never going to get you to do this, that and the other because you're an introvert and therefore you can't do it.
Yeah. Okay. What about this? Give me this. If it gets people talking about personality traits, that's a good thing. No?
That's probably the only good argument that I see for it. Yeah, I remember taking one of the competitors, the strength deployment infantry, quite a few years ago in a previous job, and I had a bit of the training, and you know the management team went through it and so on, and then at my next job everybody had done it. And you know, was it right? Did it have scientific rigor? I don't know. I haven't researched that. What I found interesting in it, though, was I had quite a significant, you know, light bulb moment of my own, because I knew I always behaved a particular way under stress. And I thought that was wrong and all of this kind of stuff. And then what this insight gave me was actually, well, no, it's not wrong. It's just the way you do it. And therefore, that gave me A, permission to feel how I was feeling, and B, insight to go, okay, I can have those thoughts and feelings, process them, get over them, and go on and not cause problems with that. You know, is that scientific rigor? I don't know. Did it help me? Absolutely it did. So I think that's possibly the only good example of that. But if you're going to do that, yeah, John's raising his hands now and fists with a kind of like, I win. Yeah, you win 1 minor point. But if that is true, you know, and everybody's had their own experience where any kind of conversation can give them insight, why not do that around something that has got scientific rigor behind it, that is useful? So there's a few different things of these around. One that people may have heard of is the big 5 traits. That's something that's got high reliability, it's got considerable power in predicting job performance, team effectiveness. It's even apparently, I haven't researched it in a lot of detail, but apparently it's even got genetic and biological bases. Researchers in the emerging field of personality neuroscience have actually begun mapping it to brain regions. And I really like the point in the Huffington Post article that I read, and we'll obviously put all these links on the website, that it says right now, though, the biggest problem facing the big 5 is one of marketing. And that sums it up for me, John.
Yeah, that's never good. I think what sums it up for me is a clip from, do you like Donnie Darko, the film?
Yeah. I
love it. I think it's one of my favourites probably of all time. There's a clip in that which sums up Myers-Briggs perfectly, but I can't quote it on the podcast because it isn't very radio friendly, shall we say. But I'll link to it in the when we publish the podcast. But it's when Donnie's talking in class about between love and fear, putting a marker on the line between love and fear, and then what he says to the teacher, and it's very well edited, very funny. But I think it sums up the restrictions of looking at personality in a linear fashion.
Yeah.
You'll see what I mean. Just watch the clip. It's good.
I look forward to that. So where do we think? I think we've well prosecuted MBTI, despite the fact that it's going to prevail. You know, nothing we say is going to make that much difference to MBTI and CPP who publish it, I'm sure. But maybe, you know, there's a couple of people out there who are listening to this who are thinking, you know, should I go and get MBTI training or not? You know, should I get this into my company or not? Should I renew this license or contract or not? Hopefully those people are going to take another look and think, let's just go and have a look at a bit more of the research, and maybe there's something better out there. That's what I'm hoping.
Same. Another win for you, Jo.
Yeah, I like winning. You see, you I don't know, am I feeling something? Am I sensing it? Am I judging? I don't know.